Good evening, and thank you for attending. My name is Natalie Sayre, and I'll be the moderator for this evening's candidate debate. Before we begin, please silence all phones and electronic devices. Additionally, please refrain from any interruptions to the debate as it is being recorded for on-demand viewing and post-captioning services. Joining us this evening are Sarah Larson and Gina Roberts with the Citizens Clean Elections Commission. The Citizens Clean Election Commission is the sponsor for this evening's debate. The Clean Elections Act is a campaign finance reform and public education measure initiated by Arizona citizens and passed by voters in 1998. The Clean Elections Act was created to allow campaigns to be more issue-oriented and less negative. The system provides full funding for qualified candidates who participate voluntarily. The candidates agree to abide by the Clean Elections Act and rules, which includes contribution and spending limits, foregoing special interest money, as well as participating in commission debates. The candidates invited to participate tonight are in contested primaries. Candidates in uncontested primaries are not included in the debate process. For tonight's debate, questions have been prepared by Clean Elections based on a voter survey, as well as questions that have been submitted by voters through the Clean Elections smartphone app. However, we encourage audience questions first. If you have questions, please print them clearly on the note card given to you when you entered and hold it up. Our volunteers will pick up the cards and deliver them to me. If you need additional cards, just raise your hand. We screen questions for clarity, to eliminate duplications, speeches, or personal attacks on candidates. The debate is scheduled for 1.5 hours, so we may not get to all audience questions, but we will do our best. There is an independent timer who will see that all the candidates have their allotted time to answer questions and will tell them when their time is up. Tonight's debate includes 1-minute opening statements, a lightning round. The first half of the debate begins with 2 minutes to answer audience questions. Each candidate will answer the same audience question, and we will rotate which candidate responds first. After all the candidates have responded to the question, the first responding candidate will also be given an additional 30 seconds. The second half will allow a different question per candidate with 1 minute to answer, and 1 minute closing statements. If you have a question for a specific candidate, please include the candidate's name on the note card. It will be considered during the second half of the debate. We ask that you remain polite to all of the candidates and give them a fair and uninterrupted hearing, no matter how strongly you may agree or disagree with what's being said. Tonight's participants are Ms. Maritza Miranda Sainz, a Democrat, candidate for State Senator of District 27. Mr. Reginald Bolding, Democrat, State Representative, District number 27. Mr. Dave Braun, a Democrat, candidate for State Representative of District 27. And Ms. Rebecca Rios, Democrat, State Representative of District 27. The order in which the candidates will speak has been determined by alphabetical order by last name, starting with the Senate for opening comments, and will progress from that starting point. The closing order will be determined by reverse alphabetical order by last name. Ms. Miranda Sainz, will you start the opening remarks, please?
Yes, good evening, everyone. I want to first thank Clean Elections for hosting tonight's event. My name is Maritza Miranda Sainz. I'm a Democratic candidate that's running for State Senate in our LD 27. I'm a mother of 4. I'm a small business owner, and I'm a lifelong Democrat. I was born and raised in South Phoenix. My husband and I are raising our 4 children in the district. I'm also the daughter of farm workers. My dad, Ben Miranda, was born into a migrant farm worker family. They later settled in our district, Harmon Park. My mom, Lucy Lopez Goss, she was born in Los Campos in Litchfield Park, Arizona. They both established in me this sense of obligation to work hard for working class families and to defend our democratic values. So thank you again for allowing us to be here.
Thank you. Mr. Bolding.
Good evening. My name is Reginald Bolding. I've had the pleasure of representing Legislative District 27 in the House of Representatives the past 2 years. I'm a husband, a son, and soon-to-be father, and a fighter for this district. Over the last 2 years, I've spent my time working for everyone in our community at the State House of Representatives. We've been able to accomplish a lot over the last 2 years. For many of you who may not know, one of the major battles that we had this year was kids' care. Myself and my seatmate, Rebecca Rios, we were able to ensure that over 30,000 kids in Arizona now have health insurance, including over 2,000 in our district. Personally, I was able to get 3 bills passed throughout the House of Representatives this last session and 1 signed into law by the governor. And I've been down there fighting against a lot of bad bills, keeping predatory lenders from our communities, ensuring that our public education dollars aren't gutted, and making sure that everyone in our community has a fair shake. So I look forward to your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Braun.
My name is Dave Braun. By profession, I am an attorney. I had the privilege to previously serve as a judge for more than 12 years, and currently I'm in private civil practice. In Arizona, the Republicans have controlled the majority in both the House and Senate for more than 30 years, and they've made a mess of public education. Right now, 25% of our kids drop out or flunk out of high school, and the latest statewide test shows that barely 1/3 of our children are reading at grade level. The Republican philosophy of grossly underfunding the public schools is that you can get more for less, while diverting hundreds of millions of dollars into private schools with tax gimmicks and tax credits. I'm running to change that. I really do believe that education is the key to Arizona's public education crisis. Please check out my website at braunforarizona.com. Thank you.
Ms. Rios.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you all for coming out and sharing your Friday night with us. My name is Rebecca Rios, and I'm currently one of your state representatives representing District 27. I also have the good honor of being the minority whip in the Arizona House of Representatives. A little bit about me. I'm a 4th-generation Arizonan. I'm married and have 3 children, ranging in age from 5 to 20, all in our public education system. I have both a bachelor's and a master's degree from Arizona State University. I have about 25 years of experience working within the children's behavioral health system, and I currently am the director of a nonprofit organization. I would like very much to continue working for you in the legislature. There's a lot of work that is yet to be done. When it comes to public education in Arizona, there is no reason that we should rank 49th in the nation. Our DCS system is in grave disarray. We have some 20,000 children in out-of-home care. There's no excuse for that. And at the end of the day, the budget that the state of Arizona has implemented does not reflect the values that I think are important to me, to my family, and to the constituents of District 27. Thank you.
To break the ice, we'll start with a quick lightning round. Please answer with 1 word. Mr. Bolding, Pandora or Spotify?
Pandora.
Mr. Braun, CNN, Fox News, or MSNBC?
MSNBC.
Ms. Rios, Netflix or Hulu?
Netflix.
And Ms. Miranda Sines, Lumberjack, Sun Devil, or Wildcat?
Sun Devil.
All right. At this time, we will begin the portion of the debate where each candidate will answer the same question, 2-minute answers. The first question is for Mr. Braun. If you were to be elected, what would be the first bill you would submit, and what would you consider to be your most important issue to address?
The first bill that I would submit that I have already told constituents or potential constituents that was important was a bill to mandate equality in the gay, lesbian, transgender, and bisexual community. Arizona has what's called a little civil rights bill of its own. It is a reflection basically of the 1964 Federal Civil Rights Act, which guarantees equality in public accommodations and in all aspects of the marketplace for all races, creeds, and both genders. Arizona does not include the guarantee for civil rights for the gay and lesbian community, and that is what I certainly want to guarantee. But it's not the only issue that I'm concerned about. Probably at least a close second up issue is public education. In fact, the focus of my campaign is on the deficiencies of the public education system. Arizona had an initiative that was passed by the citizens in 2000 that guaranteed inflation funding. Well, during the recession, the legislature cut back on that inflation funding, basically broke the law, took money from the inflation funding, and now we have Proposition 123, which is only giving the citizens or the children of Arizona about 55 to 60% of the money that they were guaranteed.
Thank you. Ms. Rios, your response.
Oh, I have a whole list of bills I would introduce. One of them would be to stop the siphoning of public tax dollars into private and parochial schools for the benefit of a few kids. As was mentioned earlier, Arizona ranks 49th in per pupil funding, and we did have Prop 123, but I think the fact is that even with Prop 123 and the fact that it's passed, Arizona moves from 49th in the country in per pupil spending to 49th in the country. We have had a systematic starving of public education over the last 2 decades in Arizona. That is a direct result of the governors and the legislature that have been in control. And so I think it's important to acknowledge that although we have many great ideas as the minority party, at the end of the day, it's going to take working with the Republicans to find some common ground to move the ball forward with regard to public education. Right now, we're looking at losing teachers. We have a teacher retention problem, and we have schools that simply are not able to provide the basic necessities for students. You know, many of my colleagues during the education debates would say, well, we just don't have the funds available. And yet the reality was that during the past 25 of the past 26 years, the Republican majority has been able to find money to provide special interest tax breaks. So another piece of legislation that I would introduce would be to stop the drain to public or special interests, and again, reinvest that money in public education. Not only K-12, where we rank at the bottom of the barrel, but now Arizona ranks at the bottom in terms of investment in our public universities. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Miranda Saenz, your response.
The first bill that I would like to introduce is to protect our voting rights. A lot of people know about what happened with the presidential preference election, and a lot of doors that I have hit have asked, what about extended hours? They have some great ideas in our district, and communities of color were disproportionately affected. They want to know, why does it take so long for them to hand in their registration form and them to not have be able to vote the very same day? There's a lot of different issues that we are going to talk about tonight, extremely important issues, whether it's education, infrastructure, any kind of funding that has to do with the state. However, if people in our community in LD 27 do not have access to the ballot, how are they supposed to make a difference? How is our voice supposed to be heard? So we can definitely talk about these issues, but when they go to the ballot and working families, working moms are turned away because there was a mix-up at the Secretary of State's office. And time again, we're told that these are, unknowingly, she made these mistakes. I honestly feel that these are direct attacks on our community. And that's something that I definitely want to protect, because again, without that voice at the ballot, we don't have a voice on all these other issues.
Thank you. Mr. Bolding, your response.
So thank you for the question. My first bill that I'll introduce is something that I had the pleasure of fighting for over the past 2 years. Right now in the state of Arizona, 46%, only 46% of our high school graduates qualify for universities. Only 46%. Part of that problem is there's been a gaming of the system. Our high schools are setting standards that our universities don't have. So there's misalignment between our high school standards and our university standards. And when parents send their kids to school and they graduate with a high school diploma, parents expect that their kids should have any opportunity. I certainly expect that once we give our kids an opportunity to get through our high school system, that they should be afforded the opportunity to seek whatever they need to. That bill was passed out of the House of Representatives last year with 45 votes, votes from Republicans and also votes for Democrats. And what it would truly do is give parents and students an opportunity to see what the truth is and whether or not they qualify for our colleges. The second bill I'll introduce, Representative Rios hit upon it. Right now we have a severe teacher shortage in our system. One of the reasons why is because we're not paying our teachers what they need to be paid. And we need to make sure that our kids have strong teachers in the front of the classroom. I started an initiative last year called Veterans Reach to Teach. Our veterans in our community, and particularly our veterans in Legislative District 27, they are the heart of our community. And what Veterans Reach to Teach does is it provides an opportunity for our veterans to now serve as classroom teachers in our community. A great way for our veterans who served our country now to serve our classrooms. And the third bill that I'll introduce is making sure that we have job training programs for our kids, and not only for our kids, but for those people who are changing careers. And no matter how old you are, no matter where you're at, you should all have an opportunity to take care of your family and have access to the American dream that we want.
Thank you. Mr. Braun, your 30-second response.
Yes, in addition to the educational proposals that I've described, I do want to restore the money that was taken from ASU and all the university system. Furthermore, I think Arizona should develop payment for tuition via publicly funding tuition for all the community college students, just the same way that we fund primary and secondary education.
Thank you.
For our next question, Ms. Rio, we'll start with you. What is your stance on climate change, and how do you think Arizona should respond?
Well, I think the reality is there is climate change. I know that a lot of my colleagues in the legislature don't believe that that's actually the case. I think it's incumbent upon Arizona, and specifically the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality, to ensure that when it comes to emissions, whether it's from plants or copper mines, that we are meeting and or exceeding what we need to ensure that we have clean air and that we are not putting our public in danger. Much of what needs to be regulated at the federal level, but I do believe that we can work in tandem with EPA through our ADEQ to ensure that we are doing what we need to do, again, with regard to businesses that we have here in Arizona to make sure that we are meeting and or exceeding the requirements to ensure that we're not adding to the problem of climate change.
Thank you. Ms. Miranda Saenz, your response.
I definitely agree with Representative Rios. There's a lot of people who still deny climate change exists. We need to be realistic that it's here, and we need to do something about it now. We need to make some environmental choices here in Arizona. We are a very sunny state, and we need to depend on those natural resources in order to make wise decisions for our environment, for our children, for our grandchildren. And I think that starts with solar. I think we need to make a serious investment into our solar industry. Our solar industry could be huge here in Arizona. As you know, we have a stronghold monopoly here that is chokeholding our solar industry. And I think that can have a direct effect, specifically in areas like South Phoenix, where we have faced decades worth of environmental injustice. So if you want to talk about climate change, you have to talk about the decades that we've been suffering down in South Phoenix that relate to environmental factors. And it's important to us. I've hit about 6,500 doors. You would not believe how many people have solar on their roof. And I'm talking South Phoenix, I'm talking Guadalupe, I'm talking Levine, I'm talking Gila River. They want solar, and they know it's not just about economics for them, it's about their children, and it's about their future. So I definitely think if we want to address climate change, we need to seriously look at the fact that we have some resources here in Arizona that can address that directly.
Thank you. Mr. Boulding, your response.
So I don't want to beat a dead horse, but again, it is important to ensure that we recognize that climate change does exist. I mean, you can tell that by being anywhere in the state of Arizona. It's going to be 115 degrees tomorrow, right? Right. The globe is definitely getting hotter. One thing that's important that we continue to talk about as we talk about climate change is we have to ensure that we're not putting corporate profits over public safety. That's what it boils down to when you talk about climate change. We have to make sure that our public is protected in all facets. Right now, the question whether there's climate change or not, it goes back to a corporate system and ensuring that individuals aren't having to pay more money. It's an economic factor. Additionally, when we talk about environmental justice in South Phoenix, Laveen, Guadalupe area, it is important. It's not okay that our kids have to leave their home and have to worry about disasters that are happening on Broadway. It's not okay that kids in South Phoenix have higher rates of asthma than other parts of the state. That's not okay. And the way that we change the environment is to change the conversation and ensure that we are not putting corporate tax dollars over public safety. And that's how we actually change the narrative.
Thank you. Mr. Braun, your response.
Yes, Arizona gets the most sun of any of our 50 states. In fact, Arizona basically is the Saudi Arabia of the sun. We should own that industry. Unfortunately, we don't. And part of the reason why, very frankly, is that we have a corporation commission which seems controlled by APS. The Corporation Commission, frankly, is influenced and controlled, elected by the amount of money that APS put into the last election, which is unconscionable. Part of the problem is that Arizona law allows what's called dark money to, in fact, be contributed. Dark money basically is money that's contributed by one or more anonymous PACs that have incomprehensible and undecipherable and meaningless names that don't tell you who, in fact, they are. And it is a way for APS to siphon the stockholders' money into guaranteeing its monopoly. Well, APS is a publicly regulated monopoly, and now it's time to give it actual competition. And the way we do that is by increasing the amount of solar access that customers can have to pay for their electricity. Climate change is obvious, it's real, and if I'm fortunate enough to be elected, the thing that I'm going to do is persuade my fellow legislators to repeal the dark money provisions of law.
Thank you. Ms. Rios, your 30-second response.
Yeah, I think I'd just like to add that when it comes to climate change, it exists, and as a state, we need to work to move more quickly in investing in clean energy sources, whether it's windmills, whether it's solar panels. This past legislative session, we saw a brewing fight between Solar City and APS. They quashed that, but to no resolution. That absolutely will come back. And it's important that we have legislators there that are willing to stand up to APS and other large electricity companies and promote solar energy. Thank you.
Ms. Miranda Saenz, next question. How do you feel about the Black Lives Matter movement and the issue of police violence?
The Black Lives Matter movement is an extremely important movement in our country. It is deeply rooted in the long history of racism that we have in our country, and we need to acknowledge that. And I've been to many events down in LD27 hosted by different organizations down there. The number one thing that the movement is saying is they want acknowledgement. They want acknowledgement by the police department. They want acknowledgement by city councils that this is a problem. Because if we don't acknowledge that, then what we're basically saying is that we are unwilling to listen to a huge population that does matter. I also believe very strongly that the Phoenix Police Department is doing a great job at listening. They have been at these events. They have stood there and just listened. There's no arguing from them. They want to know what they can do, and they've actually put together a community-headed organization that works directly with them that creates these 15 points on what they want to implement in our communities. And I think that if we can just acknowledge that this is something that's happening, and it seems to be happening every single day in our country, I think Phoenix could really be that police department that spearheads and is an example for the rest of the country. And again, because they are interested in listening to our community, and they have been there. We just have a new police chief, Jerry Williams, that was just hired. I think that we're in good hands with the city of Phoenix, but I think there's a lot of work to do in our community, and LD27 is more than willing to put in that work.
Thank you. Mr. Bolding, your response.
I think this is an important question. There is no way that you can be in this country right now and not have had some type of opinion, no matter where you're at, regarding what's taking place in this country. And I think it's important to say that you can be pro-criminal justice reform, pro-Black lives, and also pro-law enforcement community. And the saying in which you can't do that, I don't think that's realistic. The fact of the matter is, when you see young men, particularly young men of color, being gunned down in the streets, many times who may have followed the law, who are doing everything that they're supposed to do and not make a statement about it or not support the movement or call attention to a problem in this country, I think that we have to ask ourselves, are we living in reality? One of the things that's important for us to continue to make sure that we know is that we have to work on the criminal justice reform system. It's not okay that we have for-profit private prisons in this state. We're talking about a conveyor belt that has consistently, from the time of probation, incarceration throughout, it has consistently had a stain on this society, and a lot of it is driven by our for-profit prison system. It's not okay that the state of Arizona signs contracts that say that you're going to get paid for a 95% occupancy of having individuals incarcerated, even if there's no one to incarcerate. We have to start really talking about criminal justice reform in this country. We have to start talking about it in the state, and there's no way to talk around it without addressing the matter of this movement. I look forward to continue to be a leader in making sure that we can bridge all communities. The problem that we have to ensure and address is that there is no gaps between our communities of color and our police departments. And the more that we start having conversations like this, the more that we're going to actually be able to close those gaps. So with that, I think that we have to continue the conversation and continue to move forward.
Thank you. Mr. Braun, your response.
Well, of course, Black lives matter. And recognizing the truth that Black and brown citizens are treated differently than I would have been treated as a white citizen driving a vehicle or being stopped on the street, I think is simply recognizing reality. Right now we have a sheriff in Maricopa County, Joe Arpaio, who's been held in contempt by a federal district judge because of his violation in discrimination against brown citizens and illegal immigration enforcement. That's simply not acceptable. I cannot tell the federal judge what to do, but I think a criminal referral to the United States Justice Department would be an appropriate remedy. I think the remedy for the problems that we see with the way the police treat Black and brown citizens is certainly to encourage our fellow minority citizens to, in fact, become policemen, to join the cops. I think that whole aspect of training of police needs the influence of having additional Black and brown citizens as actual cops. And, of course, we do need general criminal justice reform. The last time the Criminal Justice Code was looked at was in the late 1970s. There have been piecemeal changes since then, and I think we need to completely revise it.
Thank you. Ms. Rios, your response.
Thank you. Clearly, the issue of Black Lives Matter is a critical one. We see an entire social movement across this country, and for good reason. In terms of what we need to do here in Arizona, my seatmate introduced legislation that would require body cameras. And I think that, unfortunately, although it has not passed yet, I hope that he introduces that again, because I think it provides a dual level of protection, not only for citizens, but also for those law enforcement officers that are acting within the law. I think it's important that we acknowledge that this is an issue. I think working in tandem with the City of Phoenix and other law enforcement communities is critical. It is about education. It's about learning culturally what is going on within different communities. But I think at the end of the day, whether it is Black Lives Matter, whether it's past discrimination against Latinos in Arizona, Arizona has an issue with not acknowledging a lot of these social problems, and I am hopeful that the protests will continue, the issue will continue to be at the forefront, and that there are things legislatively that we can do to assist in correcting this. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Miranda-Sines, your 30-second response.
I just want to say I'm incredibly proud of LD 27 for showing up. Our meetings have been packed. Just the other night, we had 500 people show up to a church. Before that, we were one of the largest groups that showed up to one of the listening sessions that they had with the city of Phoenix. One face and one department that was missing was the sheriff's office. They haven't been to any of these meetings. So I think that's extremely important to point out. LD 27 is showing up, and they are not.
Thank you. Next question is for Mr. Bolding. How do you feel about dark money and the lack of transparency in our state campaign financial system?
I think this is a good question. Right now, it's important for individuals to know who's funding campaigns. Quite frankly, that's the matter. That's what needs to happen. People need to know who's funding campaigns. And we have to get to a place where the public feels as if they know who's influencing outcomes of elections. Quite frankly, it's important for us as citizens to know that, and I think you'll continue to see efforts in the legislature to ensure that citizens have the ability to know who's influencing campaigns. But even more than that, dark money is not only an issue is making sure that we look at our campaign finance laws. If you kept up with the legislative session this past cycle, the Republicans in the legislature, they essentially stripped every single word of language from the campaign finance and replaced it with language that was more favorable to them and their party. That's not okay. And as a state, we have to ask ourselves, and we have to hold our elected officials to a higher standard and ensure that we know who's influencing elections and outcomes, because it's important for voters that are sitting in their living rooms right now.
Thank you. Mr. Braun, your response.
Dark money is a cancer on American democracy. We have now in Arizona, courtesy of our Secretary of State, a bill called 1070. 1070 basically stripped all restrictions upon political action committees from any necessity to identify who in fact is giving the money. Before this bill, before 1070, at least we had a bit of a way to find out who was funding political campaigns. But now we don't. And the legislature basically passed 1070 because they thought that this would give them a better advantage in winning elections, Republican versus Democrat. Well, notwithstanding that, I think it probably is going to take a constitutional amendment passed by the citizens of Arizona to effectively restore the disclosure that it should be required for any contribution to a political campaign. You should not be able to influence a political campaign without identifying who, in fact, is giving the money. That's been a basic premise of Arizona democracy since we became a state. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Rios, your response.
Yes, clearly we need to do away with dark money. The public should know who is funding campaigns, and if you are funding someone's campaign, you shouldn't be afraid to be public about that. You know, one of the examples that we can use is APS. Now we know bankrolled and funded a majority of the Corporation Commission candidates that ended up winning. This is the commission that oversees rates for APS. This is one of the reasons why dark money is in fact so dangerous. We have a governor, a sitting governor, that was bankrolled by a lot of money, dark money from the Koch brothers. The problem is when people can secretly fund campaigns and initiatives, it's more difficult to then follow what are these elected officials doing in terms of repaying that and providing favors. And at the end of the day, as much as we don't like to acknowledge that happens, it does happen. And I think the only way that you begin to eliminate that is by requiring disclosure in all races and in all initiatives. We have a legislature that is adamantly opposed to doing away with dark money, but it is an issue that absolutely needs to be addressed.
Thank you. Ms. Miranda Saenz, your response.
As I said, we've been hitting doors now for 5.5 months, and the public has continuously said that they don't want dark money. They know about it, and they want to know who's buying their elected officials. In our district specifically, they want to know how the votes line up with dark money. And they're able to see that when we have someone in our state Senate that votes along the lines of, as Representative Rios said, APS. They already don't trust politics as it is. And then when I have voters coming to me telling me, and specifically again in South Phoenix, saying this is sellout money, they've been sold out way too many times. And our community deserves somebody who's going to say dark money has, just as they said, dark money has absolutely no place in our politics. It has the one thing that should be influencing the way politicians are voting, the only thing that should be on their mind when they're deciding yes or no on a bill should be the voters in their district. They should not be worrying about whether they're going to be making friends, whether or not they're going to have to worry about re-election, and who's contributing to their accounts. They should not be worrying about corporate interests. They should be worrying about ours. What is their job down there? Our interests should be their number one concern. And with dark money, we have no idea what their interests are, but we get an inclination of it when their votes come around.
Thank you. Mr. Bolding, your 30-second response.
And to sum it up, I think it's one simple question. Do we believe millionaires and billionaires should control the outcomes of elections? And if you answer no, then I think you recognize what the issue is that we have with dark money. And again, I just want to clarify. So we had Senate Bill 1516. That was a bill that actually stripped some of the language. I know it was mentioned, a different bill, but 1516 was the bill that stripped that campaign finance language. And again, if you don't believe that millionaires and billionaires should control the outcome of elections, then you shouldn't support dark money.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with you, Mr. Braun. What is your position on additional restrictions on firearms?
I have a number of restrictions that I'm going to suggest about firearms, and I will list them fairly quickly. One, I propose to close the gun show loophole. Two, I think it's important to reinstate the semi-assault rifle ban. It worked for 10 years in the 1990s and early 2000s in reducing deaths by firearms, and it will work again. Three, I think there should be psychological testing on gun purchasers before they buy their very first weapon. there's all sorts of talk by the NRA that we don't want psychologically damaged people with guns, but there's no way of knowing the psychological status of a gun purchaser without first doing some testing to finding out whether this person is emotionally and psychologically stable enough to have a gun. 4, I think there should be a 1-week waiting period before the purchaser of a gun may in fact obtain that gun. This will prevent suicides, which are about 2/3 of the gun deaths in this country, and it'll prevent domestic violence actions resulting in death. 5, I propose that the domestic violence victims, the orders of protection that I had to issue when I was a judge, that information be computerized and immediately be reported into the system. 6, I'm suggesting mandatory reporting of gun thefts. And 7, if you're on the federal watch list, that person should be a prohibited purchaser of guns.
Thank you. Ms. Rios, your response.
Yeah, I support the Second Amendment. I have family members that hunt, but I think when it comes to Arizona, Arizona is clearly the most lenient state in the country when it comes to gun laws, and it is absolutely to our detriment. You know, the vast majority of people support common sense legislation that would require background checks so that we know who is obtaining guns, that we're ensured that they don't have issues of domestic violence or mental health issues. We have the ability for folks to walk around with a concealed weapon we don't know who's carrying. We have a legislature that year after year introduces legislation. They want teachers to carry guns. They want students at universities to carry guns. And so I think we absolutely need to look at the leniency in terms of the laws that we have on the books and begin to roll back some of those more common sense things that we can do to ensure public safety. Nobody's trying to take away anyone's guns, but we want to make sure that society is safe, and we don't want, Arizona to be, again, the late night fodder because we have, guns in bars. There's much work to do in Arizona. Unfortunately, the NRA has had a very strong presence here, but I believe that we start with the most simple and basic of laws, and that's requiring background checks, addressing the concealed carry issue, and also, seeking to eliminate assault rifles. You can't hunt with them. These are clearly meant for other means and not necessary in my estimation. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Miranda Sainz, your response.
I agree. I think we definitely need some common sense gun laws. We definitely need to ban assault rifles. They have no place on our streets. We need to limit the amount of ammunition that can be purchased, and we also need to do universal background checks. And this is something that both Republicans and Democrats can agree with, because again, it's common sense. Everyone agrees that we should have the right to bear arms. I also agree with that as well. However, we're not talking about that. We're talking about child safety. We're talking about safety to be able to go into the public. We're talking about concealed weapons. And I definitely think that, again, across the aisle, voters, Republican and Democrat, can both agree that we need to feel safe in our communities. And I think that if you can do that, especially with universal background checks, that's something that has been polled multiple times, and everyone agrees we need to know who's purchasing these guns. They need to have a waiting period in order to do that. And I definitely think that's something that can address the fact of domestic violence. And also with the mass shootings that have been happening in our country, we need to protect our citizens, and we need to protect that by just, again, passing laws here in Arizona at least that we can affect change here in our state and also address federal issues and put pressure on the federal government to make changes at their level.
Thank you. And Mr. Boulding, your response.
So I think it's important for us to put it on the table and recognize that people have a right to protect their families. I'm a gun owner myself. My wife doesn't like it, but I'm a gun owner myself. But I think it's also important for us to recognize that we need to get illegal guns off the streets. And I'm tired of hearing about Columbines and Orlandos and the shootings that we're seeing across the country. And part of that is because we have too many illegal guns on the street, and it's too easy to purchase a gun in this country. And it's when we look at our TV and we see these shooting incidents that take place across the country, I think it's easy for us to forget what's happening in our own backyard. If you look at the news, or if you've looked at the past, 3 to 5 months, we're seeing shootings that are happening on Baseline Road. We're seeing shootings that are happening on Southern, on Rozier. That's in our backyard, and what we have to make sure that we're doing is we are creating an environment in which we're saying that it's not okay for anyone to have a gun if you don't need to have one. The problem that we have to fight and the problem that we have to continuously go against is that we have a lobbying system in the NRA that puts profits over people, and that's not okay in this country. We have to make sure that we are giving individuals, again, the right to have that Second Amendment right, but we also have to make sure that we're protecting the public and we're not putting profits over people's lives.
Thank you. And Mr. Braun, your 30-second response.
In 2016, there will be about 35,000 gun deaths in the United States. About 12,000 of them will be homicides, 22,000 of them will be suicides, and the balance accidents. The reality is that if you die from a gun in the United States, there's an over 60% chance that the person who pulled the trigger is you.
Thank you. At this time, we will transition to the part of the debate where each candidate will receive a separate question with 1 minute to respond. Remember, you still may submit questions via note cards and direct them to specific candidates. Please refrain from personal attacks. The first question will be for Ms. Rios. What do you view as the role of the Department of Child Safety in protecting our most vulnerable children, and what ways can we improve the agency?
Thank you. The Department of Child Safety, in my estimation, is failing children in Arizona miserably. We are removing children at 2 times the national rate. We have some 20,000 children that have been removed from their families and are living in foster homes, group homes, residential treatment centers. And while I will be the first to say we need to ensure child safety, and when a child is in a situation where they're in danger, we should remove them, the vast majority of the kids involved in DCS, 80%, are there because of neglect. Neglect because the state of Arizona has refused to provide basic necessities. We cut TANF funding, which basically provides additional money for food. We refuse to provide child care assistance, yet we require that parents go out and get a job. So oftentimes these children are left in unsafe situations. I think that there needs to be a change at the helm of DCS. I introduced legislation that would require minimum educational and experience requirements. We have a director that isn't even qualified by DCS standards to be a caseworker, and yet he's running the agency.
Thank you. Mr. Braun, your question. What is your position on single-payer health care and or dental care?
Single-payer health care basically is that the government, through our collective taxes, will pay for health insurance and pay the doctors and the hospitals for our health care. Personally, I've supported single-payer. The chances of it getting through the federal Congress is 0. And under the circumstances, Obamacare was about the best that we could do. And Obamacare is a compromise. It still involves our private health insurance industry very much in the payment of health insurance. But it's neither as efficient nor as effective as single payer, in fact, would be. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Boulding. What have you done to make higher education more accessible and affordable?
That's a good question. Right now, if you look at our state legislature over the past 2 cycles, you'll notice that the state has continuously cut funding to higher education. Last year, the state cut $50 million from our universities. This year, the state gave $0 to Pima Community College, $0 to Maricopa Community College. They did the exact same thing last year. We're expecting our kids to do more with less. Right now, we are in an age where our kids are saddled with student debt. So one thing that I've done is I've introduced a bill that would require community college tuition waivers. So if our students, if they have the ability to show that they're making adequate progress, as a state, we're going to step up and we're going to ensure that they have the tuition that they need in order for them to have access to higher education. I've been working with the White House over the past 2 years, introducing a bill that would allow free community college tuition waivers, and I look forward to continue to do that.
Thank you. Ms. Miranda Sines, your next question. Would you care to make a comment on your opponent's endorsement of our current sitting governor, Mr. Ducey?
Absolutely.
And if so, what would it be?
Absolutely. I come from staunch Democrats. We are really proud to hold true to our democratic values. I am a daughter of a man who gave our Democratic governor a hard time. So for her to turn around and make a betrayal and a slap in the face to so many people in our community, and I'm talking about people that know me, that don't know me, people I have just been able to meet at the doors, they still feel the sting from 2014. And they talk about it as if it just happened yesterday. First question they want to know is, am I a Democrat and would I ever endorse a governor Republican? And it's much more than him just having an R behind his name. It's the fact that he told us exactly what he was going to do to our state, and she still decided to endorse him. And he's made true on all those comments. When it comes to private prisons, privatizing education, when it comes to immigration, he's held true to his promise.
Thank you. Ms. Rios, do you consider yourself pro-choice, and how would you support access to affordable health care?
I am pro-choice. The reality is that is a very private and personal issue, and one that I do not believe the legislature needs to be involved with. At the end of the day, it's a decision that needs to be made between a woman, her partner, and her faith. And repeated attempts by the legislature to intervene into this situation, I think, have been very detrimental to women across the state, and as a result have, in fact, resulted in women not being able to receive health care, particularly in rural areas, when they need it. That is an ongoing battle at the legislature, and one that I'm very happy to fight, because at the end of the day, we need to ensure that women are safe, we need to ensure that they have health care options, and we need to respect the privacy of these decisions between a woman, her partner, and her faith.
Thank you. Mr. Braun, your question. What is your position on free higher education?
Well, my position specifically in reference to the educational system is that the state of Arizona should fund our community colleges the same way we fund primary and secondary education. We should pay for it out of our state taxes and partially out of our property taxes. If you pay your property taxes now and actually see a bill, you'll notice a separate line item for our community colleges. Arizona has a guarantee in its constitution that education should be as inexpensive or as free as possible. I would like to see, a reduction in the tuition that we do charge to our university students, if at all possible.
Thank you. Mr. Bolding, as heroin and prescription drug overdoses continue to escalate in Arizona, what steps would you take legislatively to help combat the ongoing opioid epidemic?
This is an important question. Last year I had a mother come into my office and talk to me about her son, Tommy, who overdosed. She's actually creating a movement of mothers who have children who have overdosed from heroin and other types of drugs. And one of the biggest things that she said was, we need to make sure that we are having a true conversation regarding illegal drugs in this country. And for me, it's clear that we have a opioid problem that's taken place across this country, not only in Arizona, but across the Midwest, East Coast, everywhere. So what I'll do is continue to work with our Department of Health and make sure that we're creating policies that are ensuring that we are, one, getting drugs off the street, but two, we're making sure that we're teaching our kids that that is not the route to go.
Thank you. Ms. Miranda Saenz, what is your opinion towards the ability of Arizonans to install or lease solar panels on their home, and then the consequences when they go to sell that home?
I actually ran into a woman who had solar on her house, and she was really excited about it, and she told me the same thing, but I just heard that now there's these laws that have been passed that are going to make it extremely difficult for me to sell my home or my neighbors to actually get solar on their homes in the first place. So I definitely think that there's been a monopoly utility company in our state legislature that's been working vigorously to be able to stop people from buying solar. I am definitely a proponent of creating a much easier way for us to get solar. I'm very much opposed to the fact that there are rules in place that would make it difficult for people, because this is such an important way for us to make an impact on our environment. So I definitely think that we need more work down at the state legislature in order to decrease the problems that people have when they do sell their homes.
Thank you. Ms. Rios, your next question. What is your perspective on the adoption of a law to allow for the purchase and use of recreational marijuana among those 21 years older and older in Arizona?
You know, I was very supportive of medicinal marijuana for folks that needed it for medicinal reasons. I'm not sure. And the reason I'm not sure is that while I think there is much benefit in terms of tax income that we can use for a number of beneficial issues in Arizona, I'm not sure personally that we're ready to open the gates for recreational marijuana. I would like first to see the outcomes of some of the other states that have implemented recreational marijuana beyond tax revenue. What has been the impact in terms of social issues and the criminal justice system. I think part of the problem is that it's still new. It still needs to be. I would feel more comfortable after further review of how other states have implemented and what the results have been.
Thank you. Mr. Braun, your next question. What should the state of Arizona do regarding taxes on small businesses?
In the last 20 years, the Arizona legislature has cut taxes on big business for 20 of the last 20 years. And it was done with the promise and the premise that this would boost prosperity in Arizona, that this would bring in additional businesses from out of state, that in fact it would help build prosperity in the business community that would result in prosperity throughout the whole economy. It's a theory that hasn't worked. It's called trickle-down economics. George H.W. Bush called it voodoo economics, and he was right back 35 years ago, and he's still right now. The way we help businesses grow in Arizona is by providing a decent economic system.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Golding, if elected, what steps would you take to continue diversifying Arizona's economy, and what industries and sectors would you focus on?
one of the things that the state of Arizona has to ensure that we're doing is that we are not just relying on our economy to be driven by tourism and construction. We have to be at a position where we can diversify the revenues that we are receiving. It's not popular to say it, but it's something that we need to say, is that we need to look at raising taxes. The fact of the matter here is that our school systems are starving. There should never be a position where we have to decide whether or not we're going to close a community center or not allow elderly folks to not have the resources that they need at senior centers, or close pools, or shut down after school programs in order for us to balance that with public safety or things of that nature. The pot has to increase. And the only way that the pot increases is, one, that as citizens we have to raise taxes, but two, we have to think about where we're at as a state. There's no reason why we shouldn't be generating and utilizing the weather and solar to really become the solar capital of the world.
I would like to remind our live audience that we do encourage live audience questions first, and this is the time that you can submit specific candidate questions. We just ask that you refrain from personal attacks. So, Ms. Miranda Sainz, your next question. What is your position regarding if the U.S. should develop a set of guidelines so immigrants who entered this country illegally can be offered a pathway to U.S. citizenship?
I am a strong supporter of DACA and DAPA. I've seen firsthand the amazing students that come across the border from a very young age, 3-4 years old. I have had the honor of knowing students that have gone on to Dartmouth, who have had full rights to these private universities. I am honored to know them, and I think they're an incredible part of our economic system that is being ignored. And just from the moral standpoint, these are wonderful students that contribute to our society. From an economic standpoint, they're leaving our state and they're going to other universities, and more than likely they'll stay there and they'll pay taxes because they're college graduates, and they're going to be paid at a higher rate. So regardless if you're looking at it from a moral standpoint or an economic standpoint, we need to make sure that we keep our best and our brightest here. So I am in complete support of both DACA and DAPA.
Thank you. Ms. Rios, your next question. What are your thoughts about requiring employers to pay both men and women the same wage for doing the same job?
Absolutely. I mean, in Arizona we have what's called the right to work law. I think we should have the right to work for equal pay. I guess it is such a nonsensical issue to me, but yet one that is very real in the Arizona legislature. And again, my conservative colleagues across the aisle will give a number of reasons as to why we shouldn't mandate this. But at the end of the day, there should be equal pay for equal work, regardless of gender, regardless of age, regardless of color, of your skin. If you're doing the same work, there should be that equality. And that goes without saying.
Thank you. Mr. Braun, your next question. What do you think we need to do to attract and retain teachers in Arizona and retain our graduates in the workforce?
Well, to retain teachers in Arizona, we need to pay them more. It's as simple as that. We have some excellent teaching colleges and programs in the state, but we have a starting salary that is about $35,000 if they're lucky, and keeping teachers at that rate, especially if they're going to stay in the profession, is simply not enough. The way we retain graduates from universities, again, is to provide economic opportunity for them to get that first step, and that requires a vigorous and growing economy. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bolding, do you support the current minimum wage increase on the ballot this fall? And please expound upon the answer.
Yes, I do support the minimum wage increase on the ballot in November. I began my career here as an educator, and for far too long I've seen too many families being forced to work 1, 2, 3, and 4 jobs just to make ends meet. That is not something that we should expect. You should be able to work a job and able to take care of your family. The sad reality is too many parents have to make a simple choice, and this choice is that parents are now have to decide whether or not they are going to miss work if a child is sick, or they have to ask another older child to stay home, and that's no choice any parent should have to make. Right now in the state of Arizona, more than half of Arizonians don't have earned sick leave, which means that when they're sick, their job's at risk. What this ballot initiative requires, and it allows individuals to have earned sick leave while also raising the minimum wage.
Thank you. Ms. Miranda Sines. From the audience, we need to build a better relationship between the Hispanic and African American communities in South Phoenix. What will you do to help this?
I think the first thing is that we need to start talking to each other and understanding that we live in the same community and we face a lot of the same discriminations. We need to work with each other closely, and we need to understand that we can put that history aside, because what it comes down to is that we all want the same thing. We all want our children to be safe when they go to schools. We all want economic development in our communities. And I think what it's going to start with is here. Whoever it is that's at our congressional level, whoever it is that is in our state representatives, whoever it is that is in our city council, we need to start working together in order to make South Phoenix specifically a strong community, because we have a really strong history of civil rights leaders that have come from our district. When Cesar Chavez came, he came to our district. That's something that we should take pride in, and we should know that we can do this together. And I definitely think that if you want to turn Arizona blue, you're going to start with LD 27.
Thank you. We will do one more round of this, so if you do have a specific question for one of these candidates, now would be the time to submit it. And so, Ms. Rios, the question that I have chosen for you off of our survey questions, what is your position towards children being required to be vaccinated for preventable diseases?
I believe that all children should be vaccinated for preventable diseases. I believe it's neglectful not to do so. The fact of the matter is that if we are not requiring immunizations, we are putting all children at risk. And so while we have the ability for parents to opt out for religious reasons, and I respect that, I think that's where it needs to be narrowed to that. Right now, it is far too easy for a parent to go in and just sign a waiver saying they don't want their child immunized. Again, this is about talking about health and the promotion of health for all children. And if you allow a large percentage of children to be exempted from being immunized, you put all children at risk.
Thank you. Mr. Braun, what is your position of drug testing for welfare recipients?
I'm opposed to it. There's been a number of studies of the whole issue as to whether there is use of drugs by welfare recipients. Frankly, their use of any sort of illegal drugs is considerably less than perhaps the use of illegal drugs by the members of the legislature. The drug usage, frankly, depends upon having money. And these individuals, just by their very nature, don't have those resources. It seems like a waste of money to go through drug testing. And in fact, the proposal is to charge them for that testing, which is obviously unnecessary.
Thank you. Mr. Bolding, in recent years, states such as California and Vermont have instituted automatic voter registration as a means to expand the electorate. What is your position on such an idea for Arizona?
Absolutely, we need to have automatic voter registration. I don't even think it's something that should be debated. The fact of the matter is, when you get your driver's license, you should be automatically registered to vote. When you move, it should be an opt-out system, as far as I believe. We have to be in a position in which citizens have the ability to elect the people who are chosen to represent them. And the fact of the matter is, right now, you have legislators who are trying to game the system. And when you look at studies, what you see is that most people think those in the legislature may not support their values. And part of the reason is there's like this gaming of the system. We have to make sure that everyone has the ability to vote. And I live by this simple saying, your vote is your voice. And the more voices that we have, the stronger Arizona will have.
Thank you. And finally, Ms. Miranda Sines, what's your position regarding the federal government assigning control of Arizona's federal public lands to the state?
This was a huge issue during Prop 123. I know that there was a lot of debate about that. I definitely think that Arizona needs to take a look at the long-term goals. We need to have leaders that are in positions of authority, specifically at the state legislature, that have vision for our state. And when it comes to the land issue, we definitely need to make sure that people are keeping in mind, again, future generations, and in order to ensure the fact that they will have the resources that we have now, generations down the road.
Thank you. At this point in time, we will move to our closing comments. We'll start with you, Ms. Rios. 1 minute closing statement.
Thank you. My name is Rebecca Rios, and I'm hoping to continue my work in the Arizona legislature. I want to be a part of a new legislature that focuses funding public education instead of diverting public tax dollars into private and parochial schools for the benefit of a few children. I want to be part of the legislature that invests in people, whether that's K through 12 or university funding, infrastructure, and health care, over a legislature that continues to provide special interest tax cuts. I want to ensure that we are a legislature that promotes voter engagement as opposed to the one we have now that continues to put numerous roadblocks in front of voters, be it ballot harvesting or increased identification requirements. I think that there is much that can be done if you have the right people at the table. I'm very invested in the state of Arizona. I'm very adamant and vocal on issues that are important to me, my family, and the families of District 27, and I very much want to continue the work for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Braun, your 1 minute closing statement.
Again, my name is Dave Braun. I'm proud to describe myself as a progressive Democrat. I genuinely believe that responsible government can, in fact, make life better for all our citizens. I believe in public education and its essential role in advancing both the lives of the children we educate as well as in improving the economic prosperity of Arizona. But most of all, I believe in an American democracy. You, the voters in this room, and everyone watching this debate on the internet are concerned and involved citizens. Undoubtedly, you will vote and work to make Arizona a better place for all of us. Please vote on August 30th at the polls or by mail, because I do need and want your vote. And please check out my website, braunforarizona.com, for a great deal more information about you, information about me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Volding, your closing statement.
8 years ago, I moved to Arizona after turning down a full-ride law school scholarship to become a special education teacher in South Phoenix. The reason why I did that is because I believe in our community and I believe in service. In less than 48 hours, I'll be a new father. And I can tell you that I'm not only thinking about the Arizona that you want, I'm thinking about the Arizona that I want for my daughter. And I want an Arizona that we could be proud of, one that produces strong schools, one that provides access to opportunity for all. And I can tell you over the past 2 years, there was a lot of work that needed to be done. And I rolled up my sleeves and I did the best that I could to continue to fight for you. And over the next 2 years, with your vote, hopefully at the polls on August 30th, I can continue to do that. Together, we can build the Arizona that we want. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Miranda Sines, your closing statement.
I just want to thank again Clean Elections for hosting this event tonight, giving the candidates an opportunity to let our voices be heard and for us to hopefully earn your vote for our August 30th primary. LD 27 definitely deserves a state senator that shares our democratic values. As a mother of 4, I definitely understand the fears that we may have, but I also understand the hopes that we have for our district, and I share those hopes with you. As a product of South Phoenix, I am definitely proud to say that I want to be your next state senator. I want to share the values that we share in a heavily Democratic district. So I hope that tonight I have earned your vote, and if not, please reach out to me. Another important issue for me is to be accessible as your state senator. How are we supposed to have our voices heard if our state senator is unavailable to us by phone, by email, or in the community? So thank you again, and thank you again to Clean Elections.
Thank you. To our candidates, we thank you so much for participating in our forum this evening. And to the audience members, we thank all of you who took the time to come out and inform yourselves before voting. We encourage you to visit www.azcleanelections.gov, where you can find information on upcoming elections, download the Clean Elections app, and learn about the candidates running for office. A link to this video will be, as well as other Clean Elections debates, will be posted on that site within 72 hours of a scheduled debate. Please fill out the debate evaluation form you received as you entered and return it to one of our volunteers. Your feedback is important to the Commission and will help improve future debates. Thank you all for coming tonight, and you're welcome to stay to speak directly with the candidates. Good night.